Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. We are in a different situation set up today. I've been connecting with a lot of amazing people who are just starting their cancer journey, and I've connected with these people because they have questions regarding how their chemotherapy treatment is going to go, what should they expect, what are some of the things they need to look out for, and so forth. So I thought this would be a really great video to make. Hopefully I can answer some questions. Having said that, I will only be talking about my own experiences with classical Hodgkin's lymphoma. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my own experiences going through ABVD chemotherapy for Hodgkin's lymphoma and some of the things that I went through, as well as answering some of the questions you guys had for me, which I have written down in front of me. So that's it. Grab a drink and a snack, whatever you need, and let's just jump right into the video. So what to expect during ABVD chemotherapy treatment. What ABVD stands for are the different types of drugs that are used to treat this type of cancer. ABVD is an acronym which consists of 4 different chemotherapy drugs used to treat Hodgkin's lymphoma, and they're given to you bi-weekly in order of those letters. So what it stands for, it includes the drugs Doxorubicin, Bleomycin, Vinblastine, and Doxorubicin, also known as ABVD. Okay, so the first question that I get asked a lot is, does chemotherapy hurt? So in my experience, my first chemotherapy that I had, I did not have a PICC line, a port, or any external IV situation going on. I just had an IV put into my vein, and the drugs traveled through my vein into my body. I really recommend that you, before you start your treatment, talk to your medical team about getting a port or a PICC line, because a lot of chemotherapy drugs, including the ABVD drugs, some of them burn when they're being administered into you. And during my first chemotherapy ever, I didn't have a PICC line yet because we weren't sure if I needed one. I needed one. And the drugs really burned my arm and my chest when they were being administered to me. Specifically, I think it was the Doxorubicin. The benefit of having a PICC line or a port is that your veins are protected from these chemicals that are being put into you to kill the cancer. So when you don't have them, this poison is essentially traveling through your veins into your body and being cycled through. But because it's being pushed through at I would say a faster speed, and because it is so hazardous, it can destroy the veins in your body, which is going to be really bad for you later on in life if you need to get blood drawn or you need to get any kind of medication via IV. So I would really recommend getting these PICC and port put into you beforehand so you can save your veins and you can save yourself the pain and trauma of having to sit through chemotherapy like basically raw. Having said that, if you do have a PICC line or a port, from my experience, I'll be speaking about the PICC line, I didn't have any pain or discomfort during my chemotherapy treatment, because what happens is they put the PICC line into a large vein in your arm, and this plastic vein or tube goes into your vein and exits into your chest cavity. So your vein is actually protected from the drug. So I wouldn't say that it's the most comfortable thing. I never experienced any pain when I had my PICC line when I was getting my chemotherapy treatment. And I would just sit there and it would get administered. And you might feel a little bit of like coldness in your chest, or maybe a bit of discomfort because you're feeling like the liquids being put into your body. But other than that, it was essentially painless. The next question that I get asked a lot is, how does chemo make you feel? So I think I'm a little bit of a special case for different reasons that I'm not going to get into. But in general, my treatment, the first year when I was being treated for Hodgkin's lymphoma with the ABVD chemotherapy, generally speaking, the chemotherapy didn't affect me as much as I've heard it has affected some other people. When I was getting my chemo, the first night after the chemo, I was very tired and I didn't have a lot of energy. But other than that, I was okay. I'm not a puker and I didn't really puke a lot during my ABVD treatment. What I did learn was that I actually had a bit of a reaction to my anti-nausea medication. So I would take my anti-nausea medication and that medication would actually make me throw up. So I talked to my team and I asked them if I could stop taking this medication because it was making me sick. They said, well, let's try it and see what happens. I stopped taking it and I was perfectly fine. Like, not perfectly fine, but I was okay, and I never threw up again. So during my whole first year of treatment of chemo, I didn't take any anti-nausea medication because I didn't need it. I was just on the ABVD chemo, and then I was also on steroids, which are used in conjunction for your cancer treatment. The ABVD chemo didn't put a huge dent in my life. I didn't feel 100%, but I also was able to be up and about with somewhat normal activities. Like many of you know, or if you don't know, I went to school. I was in my 4th year of university throughout my entire treatment for both years. And I also worked a part-time job, which I don't necessarily recommend, but for me at the time, that was what I had to do to survive mentally. The chemo, although it made me feel tired and kind of like swollen, it didn't stop me from having some normal activities in my life. What it did do is where my cancer was, I had a lot of pain and discomfort. So my cancer was across my collarbone and also like a little bit in my chest and by my spleen. So I had a lot of upper body pain, and I don't actually know what this is from, but I am just assuming that that was the chemo kind of fighting or killing the cancer, and that's why I had so much pain up there, because that's where all my tumors were. So I had a lot of like upper back pain and like shoulders, chest. My arms were all very, very sore, and I did have to get some morphine and some painkillers to kind of help manage that, because I literally was crying all the time because that pain was so bad. But that only lasted for the first week. And then once I was on the medication, every time I would go to get chemo, I would take my medication and I wouldn't have any more pain. This is maybe TMI, but I was like super constipated all the time. Like the chemo definitely messed up my stomach and made my stomach hurt basically all the time. Okay, so the next question is, how long are the chemotherapy sessions? So it depends on how fast the drugs are being administered to you. So when you get hooked up to your IV machine, you start with a saline, like 2 big packets of saline that kind of flush your veins out and kind of prep your body, and then you get your chemo treatment. And they infuse the chemo with saline so that it's not like shocking your system by just giving you all this hardcore drug all at once. Depending on how fast the infusion rate is, kind of determines how long you're going to be there. So if I remember correctly, I was there maybe between 4 or 5 hours. Near the end, I was able to tolerate a faster chemotherapy rate because my body was, I guess, a little bit more used to it. So maybe like 4 hours. So I would definitely recommend bringing something to do while you're there. I brought my computer. I was still in school, so I did a lot of schoolwork. I was working, so I was a freelance designer, and I also worked at an art gallery, so I kind of was doing work on my computer and assignments. I would watch YouTube videos or movies. I'd bring a book or some magazines, or sometimes whoever came with me, we would just like kind of talk and chill. They also have rooms with TVs in them, so sometimes I'd go sit and watch TV. And near the end, when I was starting to feel very tired, I would go and ask to have like a room with a bed, and I would lie in the bed the whole time and either take a nap or I would just watch TV. So there are options depending on your cancer center. Oh, that answered my next question, which is what do you do during chemo? So those were the things that I did basically. You can walk around if you want. You're attached to this little like wheelie trolley of IVs. So if you need to get up and stretch your legs, walk around the floor, go sit somewhere, you're totally allowed to do that. But when your machine starts to beep, it's telling you to go back because it needs to get plugged in or you need to change drugs. Next question is, will I lose my hair? So this is like a really big deal for a lot of people, including myself. Your hair loss during chemotherapy treatment, I think really affects the way you are mentally as well as physically. But when you lose your hair, it's like losing a sense of your identity. And I know some people just fully embrace it and shave their head. I wasn't one of those people. I couldn't do that. I couldn't cut off my hair. I had really long, like blonde hair, and I was just like, hell no. I told myself every morning, you are not gonna lose your hair. You are not gonna lose your hair. And lo and behold, I didn't lose all my hair the first time. I lost most of it, but I'd say I kept about 30%. There was like a really thin layer of hair on my head. I guess to answer your question, depending on the drugs you get, the chances of you losing your hair are quite high. The doctor will tell you right off the bat if you're gonna lose your hair or not. Some people, some of their cancer drugs don't affect their hair. Some people are just lucky, and even if the drugs are supposed to make your hair fall out, they don't. It just depends on the person, but I would say more than likely you will lose some or all of your hair. What I did during my chemotherapy treatment was I was seeing a naturopathic doctor throughout my whole treatment, throughout most of my life, most of my adult life. And we came up with a little bit of like a supplement plan that was supposed to help kind of maintain my body and help it during this like hard time. So I do have another video on this and I'll link it down below. But during my treatment, I was taking BioSil, which is a silico like drop. It's kind of like a prenatal vitamin that's good for your hair, skin, bones, nails, and teeth. And it tastes like garbage, but it's really good for hair growth and helping strengthen and maintain the hair. And I took this religiously throughout my treatment and I didn't lose all my hair. So take that as you will. I've used it for maybe like 6 or 7 years now, and I notice when I'm on it that my body is better. I can see a difference, and a lot of my friends who haven't had cancer and who I've recommended this to really love it. It's a really great product. Definitely consider investing in it. And from what I know, because it's all very simplified ingredients, it won't interfere with your chemotherapy drugs, but make sure to talk to your doctor team just in case. If you feel like you can't do this without your hair, then I definitely recommend investing in a wig or doing some research and finding out other hair alternatives. I bought extensions that I just like sewed into a hat that I would wear to make me feel like I had my long hair because I couldn't afford to purchase a wig. I'm sure my parents would have got it for me if I really wanted it, but I wasn't sure if I did, so we didn't go that route. Looking back, I regret that, and I really wish that I did have a wig because I think it would have helped with my self-confidence a little bit more during my treatment. So definitely look into that if that's something that you think that you need. I want to say embrace yourself, and if you lose your hair, you lose it, but I couldn't do that, so I shouldn't preach something that I couldn't do. Even now, if I had to do this treatment again, if I lost my hair again, I still wouldn't be able to handle it. I would have to go buy a wig. Having my hair was such an iconic thing for me, and losing it, I felt like I lost myself. So I had a lot of emotions with that. And if you are someone like me who also has a hard time dealing with that, then go the wig route, fucking do it, spend the money. It will be worth it in the end. You will feel better if that's what you want to do. And if you don't, and if you're like, fuck this, fuck cancer, embrace the bald head, or dye your hair, or get a cool buzz cut, fucking do it. Whatever you need to do to make yourself feel better, like 100%, you do you. So the next question is, what are some of the side effects from the chemo? Again, this varies depending on what type of cancer you have, what type of chemotherapy you have. For me, side effects during chemo, hair loss. I gained like 25 pounds during my treatment because I was on a lot of steroids as well as the cancer ABVD chemotherapy, and the steroids they just did a number on my body. To be honest, I think, in my humble opinion, that the steroids fucked me up way more than the chemotherapy did. The chemotherapy is horrible. Poison, it's chemicals being pumped into your body. But the steroids affect you on such a different way because your body starts to rely on them and use them for things that it's not meant to do. The reason why people take steroids is usually to have some kind of endurance gain or to have some kind of muscle gain or weight gain for maybe like sports or athletics or whatever. So think about that, but then apply it to someone who's getting it for cancer. So that did a number on my body image and like confidence, which is kind of like a side effect during chemo that happens, I guess. Another thing that I had was mouth sores. I was able to push through them, but I know some people got mouth sores that were so bad that they couldn't eat anything. They're painful, 100%. I couldn't eat anything that was like acidic or vinegary or like salty or spicy. I had to eat more bland foods. But even when it hurt, I would push through the pain because I was like, I know that my body needs this food, and that's more important than this momentary feeling of pain. You can get prescriptions for special mouthwashes that help kind of keep them a little bit calmer and help, make them less irritated and less red. I got them all along my tongue. You could see them. They were like the size of toonies, all along the sides of my tongue, and also like at the back of my throat. I could feel them when I swallowed, that there was like lumps in my throat. I don't really think there's a way to avoid it because it's just a side effect of the drugs. You have to, I guess, think, I'm not trying to preach, but there is a point where you have to remember that if you don't eat, then you're going to be hurting yourself in the long run because your treatments can get delayed, you're going to get weaker. It's going to be harder for you to recover. It's going to be harder for you to get through, recover and heal from your chemotherapy. A lot of the times when you're at chemo, the nurses will be like, yeah, eat the ice cream. If that's all you can eat it. Like, do it. Like, eat the popsicle, eat the fries, whatever. And you know what? Sometimes if you need something in a moment, sure. But generally speaking, don't just eat anything you want. I really believe that the reason I was so successful throughout my 2 years of treatment is because I maintained a really wholesome and holistic diet throughout my treatment. Yeah, I had French fries sometimes, I had a popsicle, but generally speaking, I think that my diet helped sustain me through my treatment. I think that's so important to remember, and something that's not always talked about. It's not always like, oh yeah, eat your vegetables and your whole grains and your lean meats. It's not always about that. You can get so creative with food and support your body so much through your treatment just by doing a little bit of research or talking to a nutritionist or a dietitian. There's so much that we can do to help heal and foster our bodies during these shitty times if we have the desire to. And I think that that's something that needs to be talked about more and is really important. I really don't think that I would be where I am today and where I was throughout each phase of my treatment if I wasn't fueling my body with foods that were helping to support me. I feel like those were the major side effects I had. Like I said, also feeling very tired and lethargic, and then the upper body pain. I also was often either really hot or really cold. In terms of side effects for after cancer, it's a little bit different because your body is now trying to purge yourselves of these toxins. So I still had all of those things that I mentioned earlier, minus the mouth sores, but now I was dealing with menopause because after my stem cell transplant, my body was really different. I was dealing with having food issues. So there was foods that would just instantly turn me off when I looked at them or ate them. My stomach was a lot more sensitive. Like I said, the first time I had a lot of constipation, and then the second time when I was doing my gray zone lymphoma treatment, I had a lot of diarrhea and I was constantly going to the bathroom, and now my stomach is still a little bit messed up even 3 years later. I'm trying to think if there's any other side effects. Oh yeah, super dry mouth. I don't know if you just have chemo, if people have this problem, but I had radiation as well to my chest, and my mouth and my throat are always dry. And I have to carry water with me everywhere because it gets super quenched. Like, my saliva glands don't produce enough saliva anymore, so I'm always searching for some kind of liquid or a piece of gum, something to have in my mouth to keep that moisture there. So I often have more of a dry throat or a hoarse voice because everything is so dry. I also noticed that when my hair grew back, it was a different color, but generally speaking, my hair grew back pretty decently. There's a video coming on that, so you can stay tuned for hair regrowth after cancer. And my skin was much drier, so I had to find a new routine for myself. I already had dry skin, but now I had super extremely desert dry skin, which was so amazing. And then I guess the last thing was the hot flashes. Like I said, I had menopause. And then the last couple things were, I did have chemo fog a little bit. And then generally speaking, I would say that you're never really at 100% again. How I am, I would say I'm at a good 75% out of 100 most days. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get to 100 again. I get tired quickly, my feet hurt a lot. My arm from my PICC line is pretty fucked up because I had a lot of infections. My veins got all messed up. So it's a little bit more fat. It's a little bit fatter and the circulation isn't that great. And everyone's gonna have different side effects. My hair is still a bit thinner, but generally speaking, it's up right now, but it's healthy. My skin is generally healthy. It is a little bit drier. It is a little bit more delicate. My skin did fall off after my stem cell transplant, which I'm not gonna talk about because that's gross right now. There are all these little things that happened along the way that you almost don't remember because all you can remember is the bigger things that really took a toll on you. Everyone's story is a little bit different that way, but hopefully I was able to answer some of your questions today. Sorry, I started to ramble a little bit. Thanks so much for watching. If you guys like this video and you want more, then write me a question down below, or you can DM me on Instagram. It's @thisinfernoracket. Check out my blog. You can leave me comments and messages there, whatever you want. And if you want another video on, what to expect during cancer or chemo or anything, then let me know. I'd love to make this into a series. So thanks so much for watching. Again, I hope I answered some of the more general, larger questions from my own experience. I had stage 3 classical Hodgkin's lymphoma and then mutated gray cell lymphoma. If you want to know more about the stem cell transplant, I can definitely do a video on that too. You just have to let me know. Let a girl know, you know? Anyways, thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Bye.